So I'll have to wait a week. I'm sorry. Where am I going? I am going to Mexico. Going to the Yucatan. And I'm going to do a lot of stuff, but the big one, I'm going to look at my room. Actually, you know a place you can swim with dolphins. Dolphins are mean. Actually, they are free. The place where I'm going, up the river, up the ocean a little bit, they do have the turtles. Turtles everywhere, but turtles good eats, right?
Are you gonna go snorkel?
Yeah.
That's
I'm gonna snorkel. No water. I'm just gonna do it.
dry land snorkeling.
Bathtub in the hotel.
Get a great view. Okay. No, I'm staying a little tiny. In fact, I'm staying in a cardboard box by the ocean this time. And I'm going to my ruins where I will see, and I'm going to use it towards my professional development. So I will become a better teacher for you.
Do you teach anything in class?
Yeah, it's all around this history. All right, so.
It's close.
All right, so. Thanks for your confidence. Okay, Hitler had just taken part where we put last time, right?
February 30th.
And what did we say? What burned down?
Nope.
Oh. Oh, okay.
I didn't know.
I forgot. I didn't quite get that to it. I will when I grade your test. Your class. You guys should have known. All right. So, no, I really thought I said it, so I didn't think about it. February 1933, the Reichstag burned down. I will go back and check it. I totally forgot. I thought we got to that at the end of class. It's my fault. I'll save that one for after the break. Because I'll show you my witness. I promise. And I'll show you the picture I took of the Loch Ness Monster. All right. So the Reichstag. I really did. I really took a picture of the Reichstag Monster. It's a long day. We need spring break.
Yeah.
We can just chill for a little bit.
We could just chill. All right, so February 1933, the Reichstag caught fire. That's that parliamentary building. Their parliament's called the Reichstag. And they found a babbling Dutch communist named Maris von Lubach in one of the sub-basements of the Reichstag, naked, with oily rags and gas tank, empty gas tanks. He was immediately arrested and charged with burning the Reichstag. He was naked. He was naked with, oh yeah, from the Netherlands. And the thing was, to this day, we don't know if he really did it, if he was used to do it, if the Nazis were behind it. We don't know for sure. But all we do know is this. Hitler was able to say, this is a communist attack. Look, it's from another country. And he could declare, because there's a quirk in the Reichstag, or in the Weimar Constitution, a state of emergency. As the state of emergency, he becomes dictator until the state of emergency is over. And so, this is in the Weimar Constitution. The idea being if there's a civil war, the chancellor can become dictator, and then when it's over, then they can go back to a republic.
That's like Rome too.
Yeah. Okay. Rome did the exact same thing. And eventually, almost, when did the state of emergency end? It eventually ended when World War II ended. For Hitler, it ended on April 30th, 1945, when he put a bullet in his head while chomping on cyanide. He wanted to make sure it worked. You know, he was worried that the cyanide, so he did both. The bones, the Soviets burned almost all the bones of Hitler, but the jaw and the forehead with the bullet hole is still.
Like, why did they burn his bones?
Hmm?
They're like in a museum.
No, but they got it at their equivalent of the National Archives in Moscow. They were worried that Hitler might become like, they didn't want to make him to a martyr. They would use the bones, as some kind of shrine or something. So he became dictator. And then his first acts were to ban the Communist Party and almost all the opposition parties. Banned them. And then as soon as he banned them, then they had not only another parliamentary election where the Nazis did even better, but the Reichstag, now meeting in the Opera House, would pass the Enabling Act. And the Enabling Act made him dictator, made the chancellor say when the state of emergency was over. The chancellor could say. So of course he's never going to say. And the state of emergency would end on May 8th, 1945, when the war ended. And so that's how Hitler took power. Technically, it was constitutional. Obviously, he went outside the bounds of the Constitution, but he took it all constitutional. And then with that, almost immediately, the first concentration camp would be created. The concentration camp would be in an old munitions factory outside of Munich called Dachau. And it's, you have? Yeah, it's pretty, yeah. It's something if you ever get a chance to go to it. How long ago?
2 years.
No, it's not long at all, yeah. It's, yeah, get a chance. It was only for men, and it's for political prisoners. Communists, leaders of unions, those are the ones who are there. There's always kind of it's a bad kind of thing when everyone thinks about German concentration camps, what do they think immediately Jews were there? No, not at all. This was not for Jews. This was for communists, leaders of trade unions, political prisoners. Thank you. Would you like a pass? And whose fault is it that you're late?
Mine.
No, not yours.
Hitler's.
Hitler's. I was going to say Mr. Mahelish, but wow, you are late. Mr. Viola is not going to be happy with you. Have you ever seen him mad? I don't envy you. So, if you've ever had Mr. Diola as a teacher, you know. You know. Okay, Dachau, and that would be, so not for Jews. And a couple things very quickly that Hitler did. As soon as he took power, they immediately started massive public works programs. What kind of economics did it turn out to be? Yeah, basically Keynesian. And by 1935, unemployment was basically over in Germany. Unemployment had ended. Hitler would become incredibly popular. There were, freedoms were lacking. There was censorship of the press. They did all the things that a totalitarian dictator starts to do. But people had jobs, and for most Germans, it wasn't bad. It felt pretty good. In fact, they began to feel better about themselves. Germany, he's making Germany feel good, become great again after the humiliation of Versailles. Now, the German economy actually was not as good as it appeared. There were a lot of flaws in it, but the appearance is all that mattered. And so, he'd start to do this, and one of the big things they did in 1936, it was a big coup. Berlin would host, it's not supposed to be a 3, the Olympics. Built a big stadium, covered with swastikas. Stadium's still there, they've all been sandblasted off. They still play soccer there. And like for the World Cup when Berlin had it 9 years ago, they played the championship there. And it's been refurbished a number of times. But they had the Olympics, a major coup. And the thing was, it's not like the Olympics today. It was a lot different than the professional money-making thing then, but it was more just for prestige. Look how great Germany is. Show how the Aryan athletes did. And there's a lot of myths about this Olympics. The truth was that the Germans did fantastic. They won significantly more medals than anybody else. Hitler was very proud. Germany did great in this Olympics. And so This was really a showpiece for them. It was more like, see, told you the Germans are superior. And during and after the war, there'll be a number of myths. But I must add, they did tone down some of their issues, especially anti-Semitism, which I'll talk about later. And even though Germans might not have said it at the moment, other people who went there, people from other countries, they always said it felt like there was a cloud over Germany. But I don't know if that's true. Do you think they said that in 1936? Or did they say it in 1946 after World War II and said, oh, I can tell. I knew. You know, I don't know. I really don't know for sure. But one American sprinter will be part of this mythology that actually the Germans did not do as well. Who? Close.
Jesse Owens.
Jesse Owens, yeah. Now the names start similar names. Jesse Owens. 4 golds. The big one is the Germans had a fine sprinter in the 100 and the 200. He won them both. And so, big deal, Jesse Owens won. And that would be started this myth that Hitler was going to show how great the Germans were, but here comes these Americans. And they routed them. No, that wasn't the truth. Jesse Owens did fantastic, but that was the only one. Hitler was very proud. Another one is that people came and knocked at the door. Hitler wouldn't answer the door. I am no Hitler. That's something to be proud of, isn't it? I gave it an extra credit I'll talk about in a second.
Have you seen that movie, Unbroken?
No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the 36 Olympics too, don't they? My wife read the book, but we haven't seen the movie. Is the movie good?
Yeah, it was good.
She loved the book. That's one.
Yeah, I read the book a lot better.
Normally, they are. Jesse Owens would be this idea that here is not only the Germans could not win despite their so-called racial superiority, and here comes an American winning, not a German, but not only that, Jesse Owens was an African American. So if he's of African descent, and he could beat these pure Aryans. And so it's going to be this myth after the war, or during and after the war, that the United States, one of the reasons they would fight this war, is against this ultimate racism, against these horrible people, and the much more superior American system proved its worth there. Now, obviously, the American system was significantly better than Nazi Germany. It's not even an argument. But this was a myth. It wasn't quite true. Jesse Owens did win. Jesse Owens was a great athlete, very brave man, especially considering what's going to happen to him afterwards. But in the United States, he was a second-class citizen. He was from the South. He never voted. When he got back to the United States, he was treated like a circus performer. And he still couldn't go to the same place whites couldn't go. The only way he could make a living after the war, or I'm sorry, after the Olympics, he would do things like run a sprint against a race car and against race horses and other animals and do things like that, like a circus act. And it's really sad, it's tragic. And I'm not telling you this so y'all go, gosh, America's bad, or good, or whatever. Or that's not the point. The point is, that's how there's a couple things. First off, wartime propaganda hides a lot of things for every country. Not only the country you're fighting, but yourself. Every place has dirty laundry that no one wants to bring out. Secondly, why this is really important, why I think it's important, why I think we should learn this kind of thing. It's not what was happening to Jesse Owens during this time or how they would use it to try to represent the United States as this beacon of equality and democracy. Why I mention it here is the US would say that. And blacks knew that wasn't true. And this combined with World War II would help trigger the modern civil rights movement, where African Americans said, enough, we are American citizens and we deserve to be treated as such. That's why this is a big deal. So I'm not saying it because, oh, we're bad. Hey, you know, there's good and bad things everywhere. But that's what really matters, that we do have power. As individuals have power if they demand it. And it wasn't going to be gifted to Jesse Owens. They were going to have to fight for it, and yes, he would be part of this later on. So that's why I like the story of the Olympics. And what about the Jews? All the concentration camps, and there would be over 100 before World War II even started. But they're all filled with communists, trade union members, that sort of stuff. The German policy, the Nazi policy towards Jews, was yes, persecution, but the reason they did it is they wanted them to leave. That was German policy. Leave. Get out of Germany. And there weren't very many Jews. And a lot of them did not realize it. They still, even up to 1938, many were still thinking this is all just talk for Hitler to maintain power. They didn't realize what's coming. That's really good. 1934, we have the Nuremberg Laws. The Nuremberg Laws. And this is the first really big law that take away rights from Jews. And other undesirables, but we're going to focus on the Jews here. That's Nuremberg is where he gave the big rally, so he would announce this at a speech there. That's why it's called the Nuremberg Laws. It's a series of laws, but basically the element of it was Jews lost legal and political rights. And eventually they lose most of their economic rights. Yeah.
What year is that?
34. That's a horrific 4, isn't it? Or a great 4. That's a great 4. It's unique. I'm an individual. I'm not one of the nameless, faceless mass. Right? See, don't you feel better now? They lost most of their legal and political rights. Better? And so, with that, this began the persecution, open persecution, more radical persecution, threatening Jewish businesses. Eventually, they would lose the right to have those. Intimidating Germans to not use, for example, Jewish doctors. Trying to get if Germans were married to German Jews, to get them to have a divorce. But the whole goal was to make them leave. And about half did, before 1938. But in 1938, when it was clear war is coming, well, to make sure there's no doubt what year, 1938, it's November. November 1938. War was coming, and it was clear somehow it's going to happen. Nobody knew the extent of it, but what had just happened, there's this feeling there's going to be war. And Hitler's always talking about it. The war is coming. A German diplomat in France, someone who worked at their embassy, was assassinated. A French Jew was accused for it. We don't know if he really was this. It's still kind of shady, but the Germans would use that as an excuse for what is called a pogrom. Some of you probably heard of this. This is an organized attack, or kind of a people's attack, but condoned by the state against Jews. And there have been pogroms throughout history in Europe. But this was clearly done with the benefit of the Nazi state. And they would attack Jewish stores, Jewish homes, and because they broke all the windows, it's going to be called Kristallnacht, or the Night of the Broken Glass. A lot of Jewish men especially, were attacked and beaten. And the thing is, who did the German government, the Nazi government, blame for this? Jews. The Jews, just them being around, caused this. And that led to even more laws against them. And that is a key moment. It's right here. Because it's going to be the last time where Jews will have to leave. And a significant number got out. Unfortunately, tragically, where did most end up going? What country?
Poland.
Yeah, they went to Poland. France wouldn't take them. Belgium wouldn't take them. Netherlands wouldn't take them. England wouldn't take them. Who else wouldn't take them? The U.S. wouldn't take them. A whole ship called the St. Louis arrived in 1939. It was filled with over 1,000 Jewish immigrants landed in Philadelphia. The U.S. turned it away. No, we're not going to take Jews. Didn't fit under the National Origins Act of 1924. it's something that people don't like to talk about. I don't blame you for not wanting to talk about, but the whole world was really anti-Semitic. It's part of the reason why there was this desire of the Jews before the war, but it became, right, they thought necessary after the war to have their own homeland. The beginning of what's going to be Israel. And they turned that to go back to Germany, and they arrived back literally days before the war began. So what's going to happen to all of them? They will die in the death camps. All of them. This is a moment that you don't want to talk about. Once again, like I said, there's dirty laundry here. But obviously there's going to be more complex. It'd be nice to say that the United States entered this war to protect the persecuted in Europe. But that's not at all the reason why. Sure, there's part of it. You know, there's an element of that. But there's always things going to be more complex. All right, so 1934, and that will eventually lead with the war to genocide. But, and I'll mention this again and you'll read about it, genocide is a measure of total war. Remember? That's total war. That would not begin until 1939, September 1st. When Germany started taking these places and the realization hit, they can't go anywhere because we're at war. We're not going to allow an enemy people within. So, genocide. Remember I said total war was the worst thing imaginable? It could justify anything. So, let's go into the steps to war elsewhere. This is within Germany. The United States is isolated. Most of the world has the Depression to deal with. Don't forget, in the road to war, countries like Britain and France were suffering from the Depression. It's not like they can just say, hey, let's go to war. They have their own issues. Remember, the North had the Depression of 1873. And then they ended Reconstruction, partially because of that. And so don't forget these economic issues. Oh, by the way, what do we call that? What did I just do? Synthesis. Once you know stuff, you can do that. It becomes easy. But you got to know stuff. How do you know stuff? Huh? You know, Dale? Which means you got to work. Don't you hate that? Wouldn't it be easy if they just plug something in? So, Germany began to peck away at the Treaty of Versailles. They did triple the size of their army, but that might sound like a lot. Wow, triple? But triple in the army is only 300,000 men. France had 2.5 million men in uniform. The Soviet Union had 5 million men. It really was a drop in the bucket, and the European countries are like, whatever. They don't want to enforce the treaty. Hitler was opportunistic. He does not have a plan, but he's opportunistic. I took time out of my busy day to draw this map for you. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. I'm showing off my cartography skills again, aren't I? Aren't I? There's no land walrus on this because that's a North American animal. Look at that. Yeah, I drew that before class. Yeah, I wrote those letters. You know the hardest part about doing this? Yeah, that's hard. But I did it for you. I do all my writing now in Times New Roman. All right, so that is Europe before the war. And the reason I put this up here is I do like overhead still. I've only broken 2. You would not believe how thick this glass is until you break it. I'll show you. No, that was scary. I kicked it by mistake, and it blew, and glass went everywhere. Well, you kick it? Well, see this?
Like running to jazz.
Yeah, you kick it. Well, yeah. There was a kid. I thought I've had enough. A biker gang came in, chains and knives, and I fought them off. Lost an overhead, but it was worth it. All right, so here's Germany. Now, this area right here is called the Rhineland. And the Rhineland is the area basically between the Rhine River and the French border. And that was supposed to be demilitarized, no German troops because of the Treaty of Versailles. In 1936, and this is a key event, in 1936, Hitler ordered his army to march across the river and militarize the Rhine. Militarize it. They had very strict orders. What? Yeah, that's a D.
Oh, okay.
D. I'll spell the letters phonetically now. D. All right, so Rhine. They had very strict orders if the French do anything to run away, because the German army could not have handled the French army. They marched across. The French did nothing. Not because they didn't want to, but they thought, well, we better get the British to help, just in case. Well, the British wanted nothing to do with it, so the French hesitated. That was a key moment. If the French would have crossed the border, Germany would have had to march back across. Hitler would have been humiliated, and who knows how history would have been different. But they didn't. This might have been the best chance. The best chance. This is going to be what's called appeasement. And this is actually the one you can really say, maybe this could have been different. Appeasement. Appeasement means giving into aggression. With the idea is if we let the aggressor do what they want, maybe they'll stop. Now, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Life is complex. But here, this certainly convinced Hitler to try something else. It's one of the great what-ifs in history. What if they would have done something? But the big thing right here is this. Hitler began to immediately rearm. Because of the Rhineland incident, he said, we are out of the Treaty of Versailles. And they began to do conscription and openly produce planes, military aircraft, and tanks. So everyone got that. That Rhineland triggered the real armament. Not completely. It wasn't efficient. This wasn't like this mobilization for war, like people would say during and after the war. You know, it wasn't at all like that. It was actually really inefficient. But they began to build stuff. But they still had only, or less than 100 men, or 100 men, 1 million men in the regular army in 1939. So they weren't really ready for war. In fact, when they began to rearm, the plan was that they would be ready for war in 1945. What's ironic about that? Yeah, the war ended in 45, yeah. All right, so, once again, whew. Then, the same years, it just kind of opened the door to this. In 1936 and 1938, Spain went through a civil war. A bloody, horrible civil war that it wasn't until recently that Spain could say we recovered from the war. Big deal. And inside Spain were two groups. The elected government was actually a hodgepodge of left-wing groups. People want democracy, anarchists, socialists, communists, these radical trade unions called syndicates, and they're called generically the Republicans. And that was technically the legitimate government. And then the right-wing groups, monarchists, but the big one were fascists. And they're called the nationalists, but they're really fascists. They are fascists. The leader was Francisco Franco. Francisco Franco. El Supremo. Franco. All you know is Franco. He was a fascist. Well, Italy and Germany joined in. Italy and Germany sent troops, planes, and their first tanks into Spain. It was almost like a training ground. Britain and France were scared to do anything. In fact, Britain and France tried to keep other units out. The Soviets sent stuff, but the Soviets wanted to take over. A lot of people around the world volunteered to fight against the fascists. An entire brigade of over 1,000 men from the United States volunteered to fight with the Republicans. They called themselves, it's obviously an American, the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. And all these international brigades. But the nationalist was the Spanish army, and by 1938, with the help of the Italians and the Germans, Franco won. Franco won. in a lot of ways, Spain is like a training ground for World War II. A training ground. Also, in 1936, Italy invaded Ethiopia. Italy invaded Ethiopia. Ethiopia is the last, or one of the last two free countries in Africa. Every place else had been colonized. Ethiopia, or Italy tried to take Ethiopia in 1894, and they were defeated. So this kind of, it was a big deal. It was a big deal for Mussolini. Italy would be great again. We'll take Italy and have revenge for our former defeat. People gave it lip service. How dare you attack Ethiopia? But did nothing. More appeasement. But it was really hard for, let's say, Britain and France, or even the United States, to say, hey, cut that out. Because the United States conquered areas too. The United States, or Britain, conquered areas in Africa just 40 years earlier and made it colonies. Why can't Italy? Japan is going to say the same thing about China in 1940. 1938, Austria. Hitler is still seeing what he can get away with. And in 38, they annexed Austria. That is explicitly violating the Treaty of Versailles. It says these two German countries can't unify. But for various reasons, Hitler annexed it. The Austrians came in willingly. There's a very pretty little town here called Salzburg where Hitler actually lived. And one of the first things the Germans did when they went in, they burned all the records in the city hall. And that would hide the fact that Hitler was a draft dodger of the Austrian army before World War I. So they hid it, because he's a war hero. They didn't want that out, that he was a draft dodger. And did nothing. Also in 1938 then, right here.
How do we know that he was?
Hmm?
How do we know that he was?
Well, there was other records and other reports, and so we know. But he tried to hide it. So they tried to put that away. Also, everyone see this? Czechoslovakia. 1938 Czechoslovakia. Hitler began to threaten Czechoslovakia. And Czechoslovakia was an amazing place. They had problems, but they had a democratic republic. It was not a dictatorship like all the rest of Eastern Europe and Central Europe. Britain and France had a treaty with them. Britain and France both agreed to defend Czechoslovakia. The area right here that I'm putting in blue, this area is called the Sudetenland. The Sudetenland. The Sudetenland, about 60% of the population are ethnic Germans. I don't understand anything. No one tells me anything. The Sudetenland think it made it? Think it did?
Okay. What's the goal?
It went all the way to the main hall. All the way to the main hall. All the way. Don't I get anything for that? Come on. You have the personal record. You don't want to be the first one to put Oh, yeah! All right, let me quick finish this up. Today, landowner Germans, and Hitler said, they're punishing and persecuting the Germans there. And he said they have to be free. They're punishing them and they have to be free. And so that Czechoslovakia could turn them over. And it looked like war. Hitler wanted war. He was disappointed they didn't get war. His generals didn't want it, but he wanted war. Well, there were a couple conferences, but the one we need in October 1938, so just 38, over the Sudetenland was in Munich. And in Munich, only 4 countries met to discuss the fate, frankly, of Europe and therefore the world. Hitler was there. Who's the leader of Italy? Mussolini. France was there. We don't have to worry about it for this class, but there's one man we have to get, the Prime Minister of Britain, Neville Chamberlain. Yeah. It's a shame more people aren't named Neville. But Chamberlain, in fact, he flew on a plane for the first time in his 71 years. He flew to Munich. Shows you how important this was. And they met, and they discussed the fate of the Sudetenland. Who's not there? Okay, the United States isn't, remember, the U.S. is isolationist. Who else is in there thinking of Europe? Okay, Austria's part of Germany now. Who? Yeah, and Stalin's furious. Stalin's furious. Who else isn't there? Yeah, the Czechs weren't even invited. And at this conference, Chamberlain convinced the French to agree with him. They gave the Germans the Sudetenland. Basically, it was this. We'll give you the Sudetenland. And Hitler said, I promise not to invade anymore. Heck, I'll even sign my name to it.
Did you just go right into it?
Well, he immediately took Sudetenland. The Czechs could do nothing alone. And then 6 months later, they took it all. And the poor Czechs are going to go through 6 years of hell. And so, this Munich is going to become synonymous with appeasement. Munich. And after the war, during and after the war, they're going to talk about the lesson of Munich. Don't give in to aggression. And this is going to become one of the most controversial things in history. Because what's going to happen is this, in the United States especially. This will be used as justification for conflict and war. We've got to stop aggression. So we got to go into Korea and fight the Korean War, and 46,000 Americans will die. Got to go into Vietnam. Heck, a week ago I saw a politician from Tennessee say, we can't have diplomacy or sign an agreement with Iran over nuclear weapons because of Munich. Just a week ago, which I would bet anything the guy who said it had no idea what Munich even was. I'm sure some staff members said, say Munich, it make it sound smart. Munich! I'm bad-mouthing members of Congress. And it's on film. Oh, not. Well, here's the deal. The lesson of music is that we hate disco. And the lesson of Munich, this lesson will be used to justify war, over democracy. And that is a key fact. War over democracy. We can't negotiate with them. That would be just like Munich. Well, of course, that is garbage. And it's actually kind of frightening because I'm not saying that he made the right move. And hindsight's a beautiful thing. We know it was the wrong move in Munich or in the Rhine. We know, but we have hindsight. Just imagine 1938, you're a young man or woman, you're in Britain or France, and they just told you, you're all going to be in the army now and fight to go defend Czechoslovakia so the Sudeten Germans aren't going to be annexed by Germany. You're going to take a bullet in the face. Think about it. A bullet in the gut to be ripped apart by shrapnel so the Sudeten Germans aren't going to be annexed by Germany. Volunteers? Got volunteers. Anybody? Think about it. Yeah, it was a wrong decision. But that's why cheering crowds met Chamberlain when he got back. He saved war. It's always easy to go back and say, they should have done that. Put yourself in that position. And one more thing. Every person is different. Every situation is unique. We all might react differently. We don't know what would happen with an agreement. All we know from Munich for sure is one thing. In fact, you should write this down because this is the most important lesson you'll ever hear. In fact, I'm very proud of this lesson. Do not trust Adolf Hitler. Don't trust him. You can't believe Hitler. So if you see Hitler walks through that door, don't believe a word he says. I know that sounds facetious, but every situation really is different. And if Hitler did walk through the door, I would be really, really, really scared. I know the bell is part of the ring, so you have to write down one more thing. I promise you. I promise you one more thing. 1939 Poland. That's it. Is everybody excited for the break? I know, there's a little key events. Have a great day. Oh, if you don't have the, well, everyone here has got it. Okay. Everyone has this, I don't know, spring break. All right. What time are you coming? Yeah, 7 period, right? Yeah, come back 7 o'clock 20 minutes. Okay. This one. That video then that's extra credit. And then here's the assignment.
Nothing. I will next time make sure you got it. Okay, then I'll figure out. I don't know what I'll do about it.
Are you going to pay for the test?
Yeah, I am.
Okay,
My
good.
mom's bringing some money out.
Good, good, good. Or Anne Marie. Okay, that's due on Tuesday. And I want you to read this. This is a little bit about American Homefront, so found solutions like they want to read. I'm going to do 2 more chapters.
You know, you're oh.
Very
Okay, I'll wait for you.
just very quickly, and then you turn the page. I want to see it.
I think we should play the race.
Where'd you get that? When is that?
2004.
Why?
That's right. I'm not that old! Where did you get that? Were you going through the yearbooks?
Yeah, sociology.
We should play the clue game today.
We gotta finish, we gotta do,
This is just our
I didn't know this.
No, that was your Yeah.
Here, you just won. Don't worry about it. They're writing about the movie. I don't know.
Okay. And that's what I'm concerned about. That's all I'm concerned
Now I have many and how
Woo!
he likes his thoughts.
Went through a lot today.
In the reporter.
If I get a 0 on that, I'll still be every time.
See, our grades.
It's only 4. We do, by the way, we'll get back.
Yeah, actually great.
All right, everybody! Yeah, the clue game is awesome. But the clue game, I won. I played it last night. Yeah, I won. I cheated. Well, yeah, I mean, when you play alone, it's hard not to. You know, that, well, and the last one, oh, you're not. Oh, wow. I was getting stoked. That one turned out great. Bring it on, should we play the game? So we, because then we have, I think we can do 2, I think we should have like. Almost everyone play.
Oh, hi. You know, I learned how to play this. I'm writing my name on my.
It's like cool, but I'm like.
Because it sucks, it's not really true.
I think in this video,
Since I've almost avoided creativity. All right, everybody. I have good news followed by more good news.
Why don't you tell us about the mass slaughter in World War I?
What mass slaughter?
Apparently, like,